Ryan's. Should I wait for Ryan, or I like to start? You can get started. Do we have a
Well-
quorum though?
Why don't we take a minute or two and wait for Ryan? Cynthia just joined us.
And Ryan, there he is. I was going to say he's in
Okay.
his office, so I think he's on his way.
Well, Sean's further down in the agenda also, so that's why I feel like we could start.
And Kara, can I ask a process question before we begin? I know we did this before, but if there are corrections or edits for the minutes.
That's part of number 2.
Yep, okay, just making sure.
So if I could call to order the meeting of the Town University Relations Committee. My clock says 1:00 exactly, although my computer says 1:02. So I see that Jane is here. Jane, were you looking for an opportunity to address the committee?
No, I am simply interested in what you're talking about today because all of this construction and its impact on the university housing fascinates me since I spent most of my career in university housing. So I'm just very interested. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Happy to have you. Margaret, had anyone put forth any items for us to cover as part of number 1?
No, there were no other items.
Okay. Then moving on, item number 2.
I just want to confirm that you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm going to run to
I
my.
see you, Jen. Who's there with you?
This is Paul Aho. I'm going to
Oh,
run
Paul, hi.
and I'll be right.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. So is there a motion to accept the minutes for October 10th?
I'll move the October 10th minutes.
I'll second.
First by Brian, a second by Dale. Areas for discussion, John.
I do have one area for discussion, and it is in section D in the paragraph, which there is some, the way it's written there's some confusion in the way it's written. So at the point where it says J. Armstrong reported that a number of aspects of the former department outreach continues, especially the guidance through the website. And this is where I would like to make a change if possible. Online resources will remain, and I can provide some language that focuses on the UConn off-campus housing website. And the second part seems to be blended where it says, and reports about student behavior will be managed through the off-campus referral link, which is incorrect. So there is this is kind of blending two things, which we should separate them. And Margaret, I can create some language around that.
That would be very helpful. And you could just email that to me if that's okay with the committee.
Yeah, because ordinarily we would have to vote on the approved language changes, correct? Unless people are comfortable, we would need a motion to vote to approve the minutes as will be amended by John Armstrong, as long as everyone's comfortable not seeing those amended changes before they are actually approved.
I can type them up now real quick and put them in the chat if that's helpful.
So not to be like also I guess like a stickler about process, but technically I think so if something is inaccurately reported on in the minutes, like let's say it's factually accurate what was shared, like the minutes captured it correctly, but what was said wasn't accurate, to the extent that that gets corrected in a subsequent meeting, it should just be reflected in those meeting minutes that a correction was made to something that was said. So unless the minutes actually inaccurately capture what was said, if it accurately captures an inaccurate statement or something, that should kind of stand, and then we would just use the minutes from this meeting to say what the correct thing is, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure in this case which lane it falls in, but I just want to put that out there.
Anyone know?
I agree, and one of the first items of content business on our agenda is discussion of this office, so I would suggest that these minutes reflect the current state.
Okay,
Happy to hold till the next meeting, put these in the meeting minutes for this time.
and, okay, then circling back, there was a motion to approve the minutes by Mr. Coleman, and there was a second by Dale, I believe. So, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, then the motion passes. I also failed to mention that Nathan is here again. I should have added this to the agenda. I apologize. Nathan will be taking the place of Michael Gilbert on this committee for this meeting in particular. So I'm sorry if I didn't clarify that. He is not a guest any longer. So he is now a voting member of this committee. Okay, so next on the agenda is the adoption of the 2024 meeting schedule, which was part of your updated packet that Margaret, she updated the meeting notice. So that would put our dates on February 13th, April 9th, June 11th, August 13th, October 8th, and December 10th. So is there a motion to approve the meeting schedule?
I'll move to approve the meeting calendar for 2024.
Is there a second? Sean, second? Any discussion? Mayor, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the August meeting. It might be more helpful to have that meeting in September after classes have begun. I don't know how other people feel about that, but there is going to be a great deal of news between the end of summer, between June and August.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I would support that.
I would too.
I don't know, what does that do to our October meeting then?
Oh, wait a minute, I didn't.
Because,
Right, I got it. My screen wasn't showing the October date. It was shutting off at August. And then I thought there was a huge gap between there and February. I'll take back my comment.
oh, okay. The only thing I would add is that I actually think this makes sense from the perspective of the university, because we would give the August updates would include how many residents are moving in, what kind of activity, what the expectations are for the fall. And then
Right.
October would be a better representation of how the first several weeks of school have been going, so that we could have conversations about that in October. Usually September, it takes at least 2 weeks for people to even get their rhythms going.
Yeah,
So I actually think this schedule makes sense.
it's fine with me. I
Okay,
misread
Dale,
it.
are you okay with that? since you-
I am. I would just say in the future, maybe there's, I think what you've done is terrific, but maybe in the future, it would be interesting to look at it if everything moves back 1 month. so that in fact we would have an August and then October, September, then November, then January. I find that the September is really, from my experience, very valuable time to have the meeting. But and just looking back at the whole calendar, if other people see any benefit of that, of just changing what month we start and then every 2 months. Am I clear?
Well, what I heard is it almost sounded as though you wanted to have a meeting every month in the fall.
No, no, no.
Okay.
Maybe at some point we'll find that that's valuable, but I just meant in setting up the 6 meeting times, maybe the following year, 24, 25, we can look at starting them, just changing the time 1 month earlier through the whole year.
So January, is that where you're?
January,
Okay.
March, May,
Okay.
because May then is just as school is ending. I think there are a lot of things to cover at that time. And July, but then we've got September. November is a good time, I think, again, to have a meeting as things are being close to wrapping up towards the end of that year and that semester.
Well, and we certainly have an opportunity, although it hasn't happened since I've been part of this group, of calling a special meeting.
Mm-hmm.
If we ever wish to do that, that is always an option as well. I don't know the process for that, but I know for the trustees, for instance, you do have the option of calling a special meeting if you feel as though you need it.
I'm kind of interested in Dale's suggestion, though. I mean, looking at those dates, it might make sense to do January, March, May, July, September, November.
Anyone else want to weigh in on?
August is kind of a heavy vacation month. And September, the activities at the university get underway. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I just think we want to be deliberate about using that July space or August, whatever it turns out to be, to plan for the return of the students. And as long as we're proactive in identifying the potential issues and the plans, then I think we're in good shape that way. Either could work from my perspective.
I would think that coming off of what we have that we would be looking at or covering in May would indeed, I think it's John that was speaking, would indeed help in July, just as you're saying, formulating something new for the coming fall and about the student activity, et cetera, and gives a little more breathing time to cover that.
Sean, do you have from a student's perspective, do you see?
I agree with the proposed change. I think it makes sense. Like September is a very important time to have a meeting, as is May, and then January as well. Like just the start of the second semester, I think it's relevant.
So does someone wish to make a motion to amend the meeting dates for 2024 to begin in January?
I move to accept the amended calendar for 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Suzanne? Let's see, who's got a calendar in front to give us the actual dates so that we're.
May I, Ms. Workman, let me jump in?
Sure, yes, please.
So the proposed, oh, no, I apologize. I'm looking at 2023. I don't have a 2024 calendar in front of me. Does anybody?
I do. I'm just trying, so this is the second Tuesday of the month, correct?
Yes.
So that would be January 9th. March 12th. May 14th.
Good.
July 9th. September 10th. And November 5th. Nothing jumps out at me in terms of religious holidays or any other conflicts. Actually, I think that shift actually gets us off of some of the Jewish holidays.
Kara, did you say November 5th? Wouldn't it be the 12th?
I'm sorry, the 12th. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great.
12th.
And May 14 is not too close to graduation.
Graduation is over by then. Mm-hmm.
So that would be a good time to review moving out and the transition at the end of the semester.
Okay, so then I think, are we ready to vote or is there any more discussion? Ready to vote? So all in favor of adopting the 2024 meeting schedule as amended with the new dates beginning in January and ending in November? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Great. So then the next we'll start with the updates, and actually the first is an update on the off-campus and commuter student services office, which is actually going to toss that to Nathan for an update. Who's on mute?
Sorry. They just installed a new setup in my office. I came back and it's all different. So my apologies for that. We are working on a job description. The University of Connecticut is to restore the off-campus and commuter student services position. That will be housed in the Dean of Students office as a part of the Dean of Students team, and reporting up through the organization in that way through the provost to the president. It is a slightly different structure than what we had in place in the role that was formerly held by John, who obviously is still here and doing great work as the head of the Care and Concern team, which is a role that he is going to stick with and doing good work and supporting our students. But John will stay with us, as long as we're working on identifying the new person who's going to sit in that seat. It's, as I suggested, a slightly different configuration. One of the things that we're excited about that, though, is that our Dean of Students office supports students across the life cycle, regardless of where they reside. And where this will bring some value is that students obviously are required to start their undergraduate career as a first-year student on campus. And then many of them, as we know, move to off-campus locations. In the instances where we have some of the students that are presenting some challenges and issues, we'll most likely already be familiar with them and have been, frankly, over the years. But I think it really provides for us some opportunities for additional and sustained support for our students, as well as working with the town, working with landlords, and so on. The goal is to have, and I'd say this is an ambitious goal, but the ambitious goal is to have somebody here by the middle of the spring semester. That's the timeline that we are establishing to have a new individual here. As searches go, sometimes they do get delayed. So probably more realistically towards the end of the semester. But we're trying to be ambitious and move that along as quickly as we can. So that's where we currently are at on it.
Any questions?
I just want to chime in and say, from the town standpoint, I think we very much appreciate the updates and the open, communication that Nathan and John himself in past meetings in the last several weeks have had with us. Obviously, we collectively, the town expressed great concerns about the decision when it was relayed to us back in July or August. And I think we're heartened that this function and the same sort of status position is going to be reinstated, albeit in a somewhat different organizational scheme. But we trust that will serve the broader community well, and will meet the needs of the town, meet the needs of the student body. And we appreciate again the updates and the open lines of communication that we've had along the way in recent weeks, and just hope that continues moving forward.
Dale?
I have a question.
Mayor?
Yeah, Nathan, first, forgive me for looking at you and saying John. I have very low vision, so on a screen like this, I can hardly make out anyone's faces, so that's just me. But second, is it possible to get a public announcement about this? It would really help people in the neighborhood, because they've been so upset about the loss of this position, and to be able to get a public announcement, whether it's in the newspaper or what, so that they know this is being reinstated, whatever the new configuration will be.
Yep, that's a good idea, and we'll take that back. So
I support Dale's comment on that too.
I have a
And-
question.
Let me just follow up. Perhaps, Margaret, we could have a conversation about what mechanisms already exist within the town's structure to either post something on like a Facebook post or whatever pre-existing avenues exist without trying to create too much extra to get the word out as quickly as possible.
Also in the student paper would be helpful too for a lot of people, faculty and staff and others that read it.
Mayor?
I'm a little confused. When John's office was functioning at its height, there were 4 staff people. What is the nature of the office going to be, and what are its responsibilities, and to what extent are you going to be able to deal with landlords?
I mean, our anticipation is that we'll be able to fulfill all the needs that were fulfilled in the past. So be it landlords or supporting students, where we have incidents and things going out and having conversations with those individuals, wherever they may be. And so that's our goal. I don't know, when we decommissioned the office, it was really John, an office of 1. And prior to that, I think it was 2. Is that right, John? You can give the short history and maybe the evolution of that.
Sure. The office actually started in the Dean of Students office, so it's really going back to its roots. And there were 2 people identified, which was the way the office operated. One of the individuals was focused on programming, which most of that programming was focused internally for our commuter students that occurred on campus. Some of it occurred off, but the majority was on. Near the end of the program, prior to my transition in roles, I had agreed to continue in the role by myself, and I could have done that. So, and that would include Mayor outreach to individuals living off campus, not only in Mansfield, but in surrounding towns and communities. That's managing the off-campus housing website. That is communicating with our partners across the state for off-campus housing. That's leading initiatives to promote off-campus housing in international webinars that we hold twice a year. So all of that for myself was very manageable independently. And if I may say, I also will be involved in helping get that person on board and train them to what they should be focused on.
So will there be on-campus activities for commuter students again?
It's possible. We need to, and once the position is enrolled, the biggest focus for us, getting this position moving is, helping students find off-campus housing, not only on the Storrs campus, but on all of our campuses. But additionally, the tremendous focus that we want to look at, especially starting in August, September, and through October, will be outreach and engagement with students living off campus and helping them understand what it means to be a good citizen, student, and representative of UConn. So those first 3 months will be a tremendous focus for that person. And once the first year concludes for that individual, we can look at that and see if there's capacity for more at that point. And part of that would be, potentially programming.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you're aware of this or not, but the Oaks has come to the town and asked for a change in our agreement with the downtown to change from renting an apartment to renting by the bed.
Right.
And the town council has been very much opposed to that. We still hold to the goal of having housing for families as well as for individual students, and to turn the Oaks explicitly into a kind of off-campus dormitory has been strongly opposed by at least by the elected officials. I'm sure we have the support of the town staff. So it seems one of the things we've heard is that students have a hard time finding roommates. So it would seem to me that that would be one of the issues that this new office could look at.
It absolutely would. We had been looking at roommates, and I think the transition for students living on campus to on off, typically early on in their transition, finding a roommate is not difficult. But one of the main reasons why students move off campus is because their friends are doing it and they're joining their friends to do that. Where we see challenges with roommates are later in the summer, where we see the one-offs, a transfer student coming in, an individual looking for housing because they didn't get an on-campus assignment. But absolutely, there are some systems already in place that will continue, that will help students find roommates, identify a roommate. The off-campus housing website has a function for finding roommates as well. And Mary, I just want to say to your point about the Oaks requesting renting by the bed, that is a trend that I saw in this role as I was in the role. Challenges that are with renting by the bed include not allowing students to split rent with roommates, which brings the cost down and make housing more affordable. So currently there are, in my head, I can count 3 that are currently doing it. And I understand the standards of Four Corners will also be a rent by the bed facility. That starting point for their rent is where many students end up after the lease, their food, cost of living expenses, they end up around that $1,500 mark. So those are challenges that I see with our students looking to find affordable housing.
I'm happy to announce that my 2 single-family houses are rented to families.
Thank you, Brian. And most of our single-family rentals do that. Most of them do a split rent, which is very helpful for our students and brings the cost down, to that $750, $800, $900 per person, which is a little more digestible than some of the rents we're seeing now.
Any other questions? Great. So moving on, Mary, you had asked to have a report about staff-to-staff meetings. I'm not sure if you just wanted us to outline that they are occurring, or what was your request?
I'd like this group to know what kinds of activities are occurring.
Sure.
And we are sort of a formal public body, but it's always been my contention that there's really effective work going on from staff to staff, and it would be nice for this group to know what it is.
Okay, so these meetings actually go back to even when Mayor Patterson was mayor, where there used to be monthly meetings with the university and the town to just discuss all kinds of things. Basically keep an update on a regular basis as to what's going on, what issues are arising, some of which are just simple conversations about giving a heads up about a project. We had stopped those during COVID, and I think then also with the transition in, I was doing those with the interim town manager, and then COVID, and then Ryan came on board, and then luckily we're now having those meetings again, because I think they're really beneficial to both groups. So the meetings are once a month. Currently is the first Tuesday of the month in Ryan's office. And then at the request of either side, we invite guests to join the meetings as needed. So we had a meeting about public safety. Nathan joined us, meeting about enrollment. Pamir Alpay, who is in charge of all of the research area, will be coming to our February meeting to talk about how that's integrated into economic development and some of the work that we're doing together to try to recruit and retain business and things in the area. And then just anything that comes up, essentially. Jennifer's there, Cynthia's there as well from the town. And then Robert Corbett is there as well from the university, and Nathan.
Yeah, definitely been really valuable way to kind of reinitiate in a formal and yet not too formal way, staff to staff communication, kind of create a safe space, so to speak, to share ideas and concerns and talk amongst ourselves. Obviously there are always going to be areas where, our preferences or kind of core interests may kind of pull in slightly different directions, but there's also, as much or more, I think, a lot of shared interests, and Kara touched on some of those things, but certainly, the future of our shared interests in housing to meet the needs of UConn graduate students and faculty and staff, and hopefully try to create opportunities, affordable opportunities for a much larger percentage of the UConn workforce to live and work in Mansfield. And so that's, but one area of shared interest that we're exploring. And so, yeah, we've been at this for a few months now, kind of reinitiating these, and I think they've been really valuable, and look forward to see where they're heading.
Thank you.
So next item, Town of Mansfield development updates. Jennifer and Ryan or.
Let Jen take the lead on it.
Great. So we are in the, let's see, right now we've approved several developments. I think when we last met, the hub was the last that the Planning and Zoning Commission had approved the special permit for. Right now, we don't have, the next phase for these developers is that they have to pull a zoning permit. And so the Standard and Eagleville Green are the only two that have pulled zoning permits. The hub, 497 Middle Turnpike, and the villages at Four Corners still need to file their zoning permit. And that's when they can get their building permit and begin construction. So there was an article in the Hartford Courant yesterday about the development in Mansfield. They were mainly focusing in on the hub. The Daily Campus article kind of is where these folks picked up the information, and then they went from there. The unit count is incorrect, even though I did share with them the information. Right now, we have 1,261 units that have been approved for development. So that's basically it. There is one other, or actually two other developments on 44 that are not subject to the moratorium. Those are 541, 555 Middle Turnpike. The public hearing is continued in wetlands for them till Monday. They are running out of time. It's unclear as to whether they're going to make the hurdle, but the Planning and Zoning, actually the Inland Wetlands Agency will determine that. They do have a group that has filed as of yesterday a petition to become an intervener, which would give them standing, and they would be an official party. So that's what I have for the developments. If anyone has questions, and then I have two other quick items.
The intervener, what exactly, give me a definition of that and what they.
And so there's a statute that anyone can petition to become an intervener for specific environmental reasons. And so they have to file a petition, and that gives them certain standing, including the ability to appeal the decision. normally you'd have to be an abutter or have some sort of standing. So this kind of just elevates their standing in the administrative process, if that makes sense.
I didn't realize that, but I know, there's a huge citizen concern up there in that section of town on everything that's going up, so it's important for us to keep an eye on all that.
Absolutely. And so the other thing, the North,
Sean, sorry, Jennifer, Sean had his hand up.
Yeah,
Oh.
thanks, Kara. Hi, Jennifer.
hi, Sean.
You may know that the university did review the hub's OSTA application to the State Traffic Authority. We issued several comments about the design, and in particular as it relates to the traffic. We did express a concern that these developments are being approved independently and don't really look at the cumulative impacts of all of them coming online within a small period of time. Without getting into a lot of details, there will be continued coordination with the developer and their design team. They were showing a lot of improvements on university property and impacts to university streets. So our office is on point to bridge the connections between their designers and the individual stakeholder departments on campus to coordinate and collaborate on some solutions.
Great. Thank you for that update.
I appreciate that. Hopefully, they can design something that can handle all the traffic.
Sorry. Keep going. No.
I understood there were some real concerns about design, about appearance. Has that been part of UConn's position, or also about height and interfering with the views from the new science building?
Our conversations surrounded impacts on university property and things related to the OSTA application, not about the building itself, number of units, architectural appeal. If those conversations are taking place, I'm not party to those.
It's my understanding the public hearing is closed for that application. So we did not receive any comments from UConn related to this application during the public hearing process, but those kinds of architectural design standards would be addressed during the public hearing.
So is other than the discussion about the impact on UConn property, is there any other discussion? Or is it
There are
informal?
conversations. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not aware, Mayor, of any concerns about the how the property is going to look. I think that in addition to what Sean mentioned, I would just raise, I know we have an item later in the agenda, but maybe it's a future agenda item, but it's about public safety. And it's not about just the hub, it's about all the properties at large, thinking about, if we have such high density populations of students and response to the needs of those communities, we're just interested in understanding what the plan is for that going forward. So we talked a little bit about that the other day, but that's the only other thing that comes to mind immediately in terms of the new developments.
Well, you know that
mention.
we do continue to work with the state government and with our congressman about building the sidewalk that would go from Towers to Four Corners, but that's only one part of the pedestrian issue up there.
I will say, I'm sorry, that we are working to meet Sergeant Merrill, our new Chief of Emergency Services, and staff are working to meet directly with the development team at the standard. And as these projects come online, we will be continuing to meet with them to kind of set expectations for how these properties are being managed. They are required to do a property management plan, and that's part of their approval. They need to follow that property management plan, but we know that these properties will be sold at some point. So it's going to be a matter of really just developing a relationship. And then Sergeant Merrill and I have been communicating. You can weigh in, Sergeant Merrill, if you want to add anything, but we want to make sure that if there's any like nuance that has to be added to the building that's going to make it safer, that's completed. And in my conversation with the development team at the Standard, they're very open to meeting with us, so it's going to be a matter of relationship building and then moving from there in terms of enforcement, in my opinion.
I am concerned about the public safety issues, especially with the hub. This private dormitory business is all new to us. Having worked at UConn for 25 years, I know the habits of students and pulling fire alarms late at night, and our public safety is going to have to probably to respond to that nonsense. So I see a challenge, especially on the hub.
I did want to add that, just to an earlier comment, there have been comments made about the height of the building and the impression that it will have on the institution, but I believe, as we had heard from Jennifer, that any kind of public comments would have needed to be made publicly in those open forum meetings. So some of what you may be hearing isn't necessarily official comment as much as it's just perhaps general concerns about the aesthetics, the location, the lack of parking, proximity to our newest building, lots of things, lots of concerns. Suzanne, my screen?
Yeah,
just
thank you,
bounced around.
Kara.
Okay.
I would ask the patience of the committee with a new member of the committee. I consider myself a fairly informed citizen of the town, but do find myself grappling with quite understanding the sort of, if someone could give me like the brief history of the world, the brief history of what feels like a lot of development in a very short time. How did this, like, can you give me like the 3-second, like, and I do pay attention, but I find myself sort of going, like, where did this all come from, right? All of this happening in such a tight time frame, given that we've already watched our town transform so rapidly in terms of traffic. I mean, I take South Eagleville every day, and it's an utterly different road than it used to be. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around all of the fragile entrances to UConn and to our downtown and our grocery store and our center, which really aren't, they're not big suburban boulevards. These aren't big suburban high-speed traffic light, 3 lanes, go right to go left like in New Jersey. These are little highways. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how we absorb this in any way that's not sort of disastrous from a public safety and other. So anyone who wants to give me the 50-second view, I'd greatly appreciate the time.
So I'll start. I think probably you'll hear from a number of folks in response to your question, which touches on a lot of themes. So being still, like, in the grand scheme of things, newish to the town, having been here 3 years, some of what I'll say is definitely second or third hand information. But as I understand it, for generations, I think it's like a couple generations, the vision, the anticipation was that the Four Corners would be kind of an area of eventual, transformational growth and development. That was, I think, identified as a region in town where it was kind of ripe for commercial and residential growth, and definitely took quite a while for that to come to fruition. And then in more recent times, kind of a constellation of factors, I think, perhaps opened the door in a way that hadn't really been opened before. So I'd point to a couple things. One, and this was done in partnership or with support from UConn, extending the sewer system to the Four Corners to basically allow for new levels of development that previously would not have been really attainable or economically feasible for would-be developers to not have access to that, to be relying on private septic. So that was a major investment, bringing those services to the Four Corners. And then around the same sort of era, the designation of a large chunk of the northwestern part of town as a federal opportunity zone, and encouraging private investment and different a wide range of federal economic incentives in that area that's part of the geographically defined opportunity zone. And so now I guess it is happening fast. I don't think there's anybody that would question. In fact, Jen, I think, mentioned the moratorium that went into effect in September, because there is a recognition on our part that while zoning regulations are sort of best equipped to look at the merits and the sort of the specifics of an individual project on a project by project basis, that there is this aggregate effect that we have to be mindful of. And so we're working through, and the Planning and Zoning Commission is working through, what changes may or may not be needed to make sure that as we grow in the future, that we're growing in a smart way, in a pace that we're comfortable with, in a manner in which we're comfortable with, so that we're not kind of cutting off our nose to spite our face sort of thing. Yeah, so I guess I may have more to say, but I know others had things, looks like hands were going up there. So I don't know if Jen, if you want to fill in some of the history as you see it to answer her question.
No, I think you said it, and I think the Four Corners area was designated as an area for growth in our plan of conservation and development. Did we think that this growth would happen this quickly? I don't think so, but when you have the zoning regulations in place and people come in for an application, if they meet those zoning regulations, then the application gets approved. And so did we think it was going to happen this quickly? I don't think so. Will it be transformational? Absolutely. Is the Planning and Zoning Commission taking a pause? Yes. And one thing I wanted to announce to this group that I will be in, there's going to be a workshop on January 4th that the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to have. It's a virtual workshop to discuss housing in Mansfield. And this is an effort to get an understanding from the boards and commission members who are elected and appointed. And this is one of those boards and commissions that will be invited to just kind of get where you're coming from, what you would like to see. It's going to be a change. The one good thing, or there's probably many good things, but the thing I like to point to is that we are getting 125 affordable housing units from this, where we have $5 million in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We've got 36 workforce housing units. So those are important things that our town needs. So it's definitely going to be interesting. If you have not filled out the survey for the Northwest Mansfield Vision and Strategy Plan, that is going to close in at the end of December. We're still working on our final focus groups and small group interviews. And our consultant FHI Studio is putting together the community outreach, their summary. And what you're saying right here today is not unlike what many people are saying for this plan.
And I thank you for that, Brian. Sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but just to thank you for your time. And
Suzanne, I'm happy to talk with you offline anytime in my office.
Yeah. And I just, maybe I'm Horse Barn Hill is my park on the weekends, and it's already becoming scary to cross up at the top. And I will just put out there, they say you shouldn't offer critique without a solution. So I'll just put out there, Ryan, that writing's my thing. And if you want help working on another application to get a sidewalk up there, I'm happy to lend my time towards helping craft something, because I just don't see, we have to acknowledge that the Yukon campus, I know it's a state highway, but it's also the boulevard through a university, and it's a very small road to connect all these apartments to their grocery store. And so I only see that becoming more intense after this. And so I'm not going to get into good or bad, or just, yeah, that it's all interconnected. And I do hope
Well,
for the best, of course.
I just
and
have
then-
one comment for Jennifer, maybe she can clarify. I think a lot of this began with some major changes to our zoning regulations. And of course, when we make changes to the zoning regulations, it opens the door for this type of development. Now, what year were those changes? I don't recall.
So we added multifamily housing to our regulations around, I want to say like 2018 or 19. I have to go back and look at those reg changes, but that is when we enacted those multifamily regulations. Before, multifamily was limited to what we call this floating zone. And so, but you know, we have a lot of multifamily even before this. We have about 1,600 existing units in addition to what is going to be built. So
I
for a
don't think
town like this,
residents
we have a
were-
lot
I
of
don't-
multifamily housing. Sorry?
I don't think residents were paying attention at that time, and they're kind of taken by surprise, but yeah, there was some major changes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was also just gonna say sort of more squarely on the topic of public safety that, you know, I guess just at a very high level and that there's a recognition certainly on the town's part that as we presume is going to be the case, as the number of students live off campus, as the number of students living off campus increases, certainly, you know, and in the case of these large scale, high density multifamily developments, while we do have some experience with this by way of the Oaks, which is, you know, primarily inhabited by students, while we have some experience with one application of that one particular project as part of the development of the downtown, we realize that as multiples of these, you know, start being constructed and coming online in the next few years, certainly there's no shortage of recognition on our part that that's going to be a lot of change, and a lot of change in terms of our responsibilities and the sort of issues that our law enforcement and emergency services in general is responsible for and is responding to. And so, you know, I guess I would just say that, you know, we definitely feel, and this has been communicated a variety of ways to a number of folks at UConn, you know, we want to have open lines of communication as this evolution is happening, recognizing that UConn's responsibilities for students living off campus, of course, are fundamentally different than when those students live on campus as well. But we do see this as a collaborative effort. And obviously, as I've been saying, the roles and responsibilities change in terms of what the town is the lead on and what the university is the lead on. But we do see this as a very much a need for collaboration, because at the end of the day, they are, of course, UConn students, regardless of where they live, and we want to work together to find mutually beneficial outcomes for everybody.
So I also want to be respectful of the time, because we do have several other agenda items. I sense that this will be a topic we'll be talking about for it will end up being a standing agenda item for sure. So are there any more questions? I don't want to cut people off, but I also know that we have other things, and we have some folks that aren't going to be able to stay much longer either.
For everybody, the state police is aware of upcoming issues and current issues. This is something that we can discuss at the future agenda item. I don't want anybody here to think I'm not addressing this now, but I think the appropriate time for me to kind of discuss it is to prepare a few things and talk about it during the future agenda item. But the state police and we are aware of this, and we are aware of some possible future issues, and that's why we're working with each department independently to try to come up with some solutions for the future and the present.
Great. So next item on the agenda was actually the partnership. Cynthia.
Hi, everybody. I'll try to be quick in the essence of time, but a couple of lots of activity in downtown stores. So since the last meeting, Square Peg opened on Dog Lane, Haven Hot Chicken opened on Stores Road. Pliables on Stores Road plans to open Thursday morning. And then we have two other businesses, Action Packed, which is on Wilbur Crossway, and Nautical Bowls also on Wilbur Crossway, are supposed to open this summer. And Action Packed, just so you know a little bit about them, they're selling comics and videos, and a little bit different than the restaurants that we've been getting lately. And then Huskies will open a second location in the former Grill 86 space at the intersection of Royce Circle, and Wilbur Crossway, sometime early 2024. We had our 11th annual Winter Welcome 2 weekends ago. We had probably over 500 people, we think. If it wasn't our largest crowd, it was close to. We used some indoor spaces to provide some more activities for people and really welcome winter into our community. We had great representation from UConn too. We had the UConn Tubas, UConn Tap, the Ballard was very, very involved. I want to thank Ryan and Public Works and Facilities for all the work they did to help us, and Ryan's leadership, especially on the lights that have really added a lot to, I think, the community, making it bright and cheery. Wanted to follow up on the cultural district. I think at the last meeting, we had not held any of our informational sessions to potentially establish a cultural district in Mansfield, and this is through the State Office of the Arts. So you would establish a municipal cultural district and then be confirmed by the state. There's about 5 or 6 in Connecticut. We've held 2 sessions already with about 25 folks at each one. We'll hold our final session January 17th at 5:30 in the council chambers, and I welcome anyone to attend. We've gotten a great range of cultural personnel, as well as the Ballard School of Fine Arts has been very involved, some private entities that offer music, etc. So it's been some great relationship building, and we'll see whether we end up going ahead and establishing the district. We're also, Ryan and Kara and I serve on the steering committee for Connecticut's Countryside, which is the Bolton, Tolland, Coventry, Mansfield Economic Development Group. We have a video that is almost completed, and we'll be excited about putting that up. And right now we are waiting for responses to a request to put together our website for that 4-town area. Those are due 4 o'clock on Thursday. And I think that's it. Couple of board members and EDC ex officio members here too, if you have anything else you want to add.
No? Oh, Dale?
Yeah, I would just like to make a couple comments. One, you may
Dale is frozen on my screen. Is he frozen?
Yeah,
Yes.
frozen on mine too.
When Dale comes back, Sean actually has to leave, Sean Basington. So Sean Dunn, do you mind if we just reverse the 2 Seans and that Sean Basington give his quick update? Or do you also have to leave? You might have an exam.
No, I'm all good. Yeah.
Sean Basington.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Sean. And it reminded me, maybe for the 2024 schedule, we should at least hold 90 minutes in our calendars instead of 60. And I have to jump to mandatory training with the rest of my department, so I apologize. A few updates on the construction side though. And a reminder, UConn.edu/construction links to our construction activity map for projects our office manages. We also have independent project pages at updc.uconn.edu. Of note from those pages, we do release a monthly newsletter on the infrastructure project on South Campus, including all of the impacts to campus operations, traffic, foot traffic, etc. Residence hall and dining facility is still on schedule as of this morning's update for an opening in August of 2024. So that'll be part of the big news I think the mayor was referring to. The intersection project at North Eagleville Road and Discovery Drive broke ground a little later than anticipated, but is working diligently. We should have the signals, including the new pedestrian push buttons and signal heads, all operational no later than mid-February. Hopefully we'll be able to make up a little time. We'll see how the weather cooperates over the next month. Mirror Lake, the construction documents are complete. Due to some permitting constraints, we probably will not break ground in fall of 2024, as I've previously reported. We won't have enough months left in the calendar year before we have to shut down for the winter. So the construction manager is opting to do it in the year of 2025 without any stops in between. So if we're able to get the permits from DEP and probably more importantly from the Army Corps of Engineers, that takes a lot longer and refers to DEEP's approvals to be done first. If we can do better on those permitting schedules, we'll reassess the 2024 schedule. But as of right now, it's looking like 2025 for Mirror Lake.
Can I ask a question about Mirror Lake?
Sure.
There was a bigger project initially, and then the funding was reduced, so you're back to a smaller project. Is there any chance that with this delay, you'll have an opportunity to add money and go back to your original plans?
I'm not hearing that will be a possibility, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to ask the question at some point next year.
We'll have extra time to save up your pennies.
Hi, Sean, thank you.
Priorities on campus.
I have a couple of comments and questions about pedestrian safety. I know you guys must have, we've discussed this before, you must have some education program on pedestrian safety and what pedestrians should do on and off campus. A couple of things I have noticed is people don't use the button for the beacon activated crosswalks, and they're walking. And another thing I noticed, and I see a lot of people with complaints, they appear to be UConn students that are dressed fully in black and walking, with traffic instead of against traffic, and they're very hard to see these individuals. I don't know can you add that to the education? Say, hey, put some bright colored clothing on or something like that.
I can pass that on to University Safety. I think it is part of their annual campaign, or they might actually do it each semester, but they maintain a website. They launched a video this past academic year. I'll make sure that the types of clothing is addressed in their narrative. As it relates to the push buttons, we actually looked at whether there could be any additional signage, and even if statute would allow us to require the button to be pushed in order to cross, but there is not. So short of having
students tend to forget when they're on campus, it's kind of easy going, cross, walk right out, and people stop or whatever. But the minute you get out on the 195 Stores Road, it's a different story altogether.
Yeah, I think there's a myth that none of those buttons work, and so people may be ignoring them.
Perhaps.
I'll
think
also add, sorry, Sean,
Okay.
that the prior chief of police, we can probably re-engage the new chief of police. They did a whole campaign. I don't know if you can see this. It's a Live Safe, where they met with students. This is actually a light up beacon wristband. And they were meeting with students regularly about making sure that they were visible to folks as they're walking around campus.
just quickly in defense of the lights, it's just taking me a while to get used to them being there. And I cross 195 pretty regularly, and I'm so focused on staying alive that I sometimes honestly don't look at the pole because I'm so focused on the traffic, and then I remember that there's the light. So I think people will learn they're there. It's just probably going to take some time. That's my hunch.
Anything
Oh,
else? 'Cause I mentioned Sean has, oh, sorry, Sean.
Yeah, just one more item. Whitney House is scheduled to begin its abatement and demolition phase the week of December 21st. In speaking with our colleagues in facilities operations this morning, who is managing that work, it's anticipated to take no longer than 3 to 4 weeks' time. All the material will be removed from the site as ACM waste because of all the asbestos.
Nathan?
Will any of it be reused? Is there any architecture left in the building?
Not to my knowledge. There might be something that could be salvaged from the exterior of the building, but not from the inside because of the contaminants.
Thank you.
Just not to sound, just a reminder to put your hands up so that we can, I can call on people. So, any more questions for Sean? Otherwise, he has to jump off. Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thanks, John.
Dale.
Thank
I
you.
know
Happy
had a
holidays,
question.
everyone.
I apologize. I don't know what happened. My computer just cut me off, so I always had to sign in again.
Did you want, you had started to ask a question on partnership and did you want?
I did. I don't know how far along I got. But
not very far, I think.
Okay, I thought that the lighting is fantastic, and I've had guests, I said from Providence, who thought it was just really energizing to be here. Their unfortunate part was that it gave them the inspiration to shop, but there was no place to shop really. But I think the addition of the store that's going to have comics and stuff in it, I think that's a terrific addition. And if we can find other unique places like that that can be part of stores or Mansfield Store Center, I think that would really be helpful.
Great.
Only, I don't know, there may not be any time. I was in that focus group in the end of October for the, what is it, the FHI studio, and there were a lot of recommendations or suggestions that group made, and I didn't know if there was time or maybe the next meeting to bring up the suggestions that were made. There were some traffic suggestions that were made, among other things as well.
Just real briefly on that, Jen had to pop off, so we actually had our latest check-in with FHI, the lead consultant on that project today, because that's part of the Northwest Mansfield Vision and Strategy Plan. And I do think probably there would be more to report on at a future meeting of this group. But I would just say that we are, even though it was outside the original scope of the project, we are talking a bit more about the merits of what would be a modest supplement to the work to look a bit more at traffic impacts specifically. So nothing to announce or report on specifically now, but I think feedback around traffic and real and perceived concerns is definitely something that's garnering some focus right now.
Great, Sean, done. Also, before, I did want to remind it, we used to have 90-minute meetings. I don't know if you'll remember. And then we voted to move them to 60 minutes. So now we're back to, I suppose it just depends on the agenda, if they're 90 or 60. But that's for a future conversation. So Sean Dunn, polling voting location.
Would you like me to start with the polling? Can I just quickly address something regarding like pedestrian safety?
Sure, of course.
Just continuing that conversation, our sustainability advocacy coordinator, Neha, she's been working a lot alongside myself and the bicycle working group and Corin Clark there to like gather information regarding educational like infographics to post on our Instagram regarding like, you know, specifically like electric scooters. We kind of honed in on that as like a major concern. People go super fast on the electric scooters, like on the major walkways around campus, and I presume like other areas of stores as well. So just an educational video and some sort of like infographic to post on Instagram. So I'll keep you updated on that. So to hopefully report about the success of like that campaign, because but yeah, and then in regards to the polling location on campus, we've kind of you know, met a stalemate there, and we're working with the former Secretary of State Denise Merrill and some other like folks in UConn admin to strategize how we can further advocate for the importance of the polling location on campus, and in doing so that that educate students as well about it, because one of the concerns that we were met with was that it wouldn't be it's not feasible because students don't, there's a lack of interest in voting, and we want to show that that would not be the case. So there's going to be a massive like voter registration push next spring in external, because we usually do one in the fall, and we did so this past fall for the municipal election. And then 2024, that'll obviously be a massive election. So I'm hoping that if we can have some empirical evidence to show that that students do care about elections, that it's worthy of getting a polling location on campus.
Thanks. And I wanted to add to your report. This has come up before. It actually, I believe, was reported on within the auspices of this committee previously, when we looked into this in great detail, actually, for a polling location to be added to UConn. Now I can't remember when that was. I think it was about a year ago. This is something that the UConn students have been approached by several individuals about wanting to advocate for helping them in this effort. But it absolutely is an effort that needs to be, it's actually under the auspices of the registrars of voters within the town of Mansfield. So I just want to make sure that folks are clear that it is great to engage with our students and help in finding solutions. However, at the end of the day, this is actually a registrar of voters, town of Mansfield decision. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
Anything to add? Mayor?
Trying to put my hand up. There we go. Our current registrars are very much opposed to this, and for all kinds of reasons. And it's not, the topic is not finished, because there are also other people in town government who are very much in favor of it. So it is a negotiation at this point. But I would strongly suggest that you meet with our town registrars and have a discussion with them so that you can understand what their objections are. Because if you can come up with ways of meeting their objections, then, and I mean, some of them are pure physical objections. Others are, we don't have the staff and we can't get the staff, and then there are people who are really afraid that UConn students will determine the outcome of municipal elections, which many people think is inappropriate. In any case, you do need to meet with those two people and Grenadier and Vera Ward to discuss this. And I would recommend that you do that.
Thank you. Yeah, we attempted to, and we weren't, they didn't want to meet at the time, but I will definitely attempt again. Thank you very much.
If you need assistance, let me know.
Thank you.
Brian?
To follow up on the mayor's comment, or Tony's comment. Yeah, I hear a lot of feedback on, especially when it comes to town referendums, such things as building schools and sewers, and that's a major concern that students may have influence on, quite frankly, costly projects.
Just want to say, like Tony said, happy to help facilitate a meeting. If memory serves correct, I think maybe the outreach or the communication that happened previously might have preceded the election. It was kind of definitely a crazy time thing. There's a little bit more room to breathe now and kind of talk in a proactive way about future elections. So definitely a conversation that we would fully support having.
Thank you very much.
Yukon campus updates. John Armstrong is going to give a report here.
I just put in the chat, so Margaret, this will help you out with some dates that are coming up at Yukon. Students are currently in the middle of finals. As we learned earlier, many students had finals last week or final exams. They'll conclude those on the 17th. The spring semester begins on the 16th of January. Off-campus housing fair is currently scheduled for March 6, 2024, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Spring break, March 10th and 16th, 2024. Spring semester concludes May 4th, 2024, and commencement is May 4th through the 6th, 2024. Those are just some dates I thought would be helpful. I truly have to hop off. Kara, I'll let you take it from here. Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
I have nothing to add. I know that we're moving along. I'm not sure we have a quorum to even adjourn the meeting, so we're all here. Any other updates from anyone? Otherwise, we did add for a future agenda item to discuss Mansfield Public Safety Plan, and we did that intentionally of not putting it on this agenda, just to move it forward for future conversation. And I did notice in the minutes that I had made a recommendation at some point for a group to come together and look at the bylaws about modifying some of the language about attendance or actually membership of this group. So we could add that, Margaret, also to the next agenda. Otherwise, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by the mayor. I didn't hear the second, sorry. Dale?
Second.
Oh, Nathan, second. All in favor?
Be well all.
All right, happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Yes.
Happy holidays.